Oh my God, we're ready for the next debate lecture. I think on the playlist it's number 3. Today, we're actually probably going to be doing 3 small lectures, right, that all come together to cover basically the last things you have to learn to be ready to debate. We're going to focus first on the most important thing, which is basically the answer to a question. Last week we learned how do we write these arguments, how do we structure these arguments. We learned about that sort of contention model, which was title, claim, warrant, implication. And in value debate, we talked about tiebacks. In policy debate, we learned about advantages and disadvantages, uniqueness, link, internal link, impact. Today, we are answering the question, how do you respond to arguments? And that is a category of theory that we would call refutation. So today, we're going to start off, for most of our time, talking about refutation. How do we refute arguments? This is one of, obviously you have to know how to write an argument first, but ignoring that, this is like the most important thing you have to learn how to do. Getting good at this, a lot of people would tell you is actually just the most important thing. Because technically, you could write pretty mediocre arguments, but if you're just God tier at refutation, you are going to win so many debates, and you're going to make so many other people's lives really hard. And this is something that unless you've debated, you don't really get. But when you go against someone who's really good at debate, you give a speech, and you're like, that was a good speech, whew, crushed it. And then they come up, and they just build a mountain in front of you. And you're just staring up at this mountain of everything they said and how smart it was. And you're just demoralized because you're like, I can't possibly climb that mountain. I can't answer all of that. That was so good, it was so well researched, all of that stuff. Refutation is very important, especially when you're new. Now I will tell you, ultimately I would say, if you had to pick between mastering writing arguments or mastering refutation, mastering writing arguments is actually more important because if you do it right, it does the refutation for you. We'll talk about that when all of you are slightly better at debate. Refutation. There are 3 sort of models of refutation that I like to teach people. We're going to go from the most simplified possible model of refutation to the most complex, it's going to sound complex on face, but also the one that makes the most sense when you think about it for a second. But we're going to start off with what I affectionately call, and no one else in the world calls it this, but I call it this, Kasravi 3-part. Kasravi 3-part refutation. Sasan Kasravi was the coach here for a long time. He was my teammate. He was the first person to really teach me debate. He's not a debate theorist. He's not a professor anywhere. The dude actually came here, never transferred, never got a degree, but got good enough at debate that he now makes $80,000 a year running a urban debate league in Brooklyn. So he's very well liked. He knows a lot about debate. He's the other guy on that YouTube channel with me, this YouTube channel with me. But Sasan came up with this in the last year or two because he was really thinking, what is the simplest way to teach students how you respond to arguments? And what Sasan proposes is that there's only 3 things anyone ever objects to when it comes to an argument. And those 3 things, in Sasan's mind, are the accuracy of the argument, the relevance of the argument, and the significance of the argument. So let's break these down a little bit. When Sasan says accuracy, that you object to the accuracy of your opponent's argument, what do you think he means? What would that look like?
You just tell them they're wrong.
They're wrong, okay? Factually, you are wrong. Your evidence is incorrect. Your description of the world is inaccurate. You are wrong. Okay? Pretty easy. What do you think he means by relevance?
You might be right, but it's not tied to the topic.
It has nothing to do. It's not important to what we're talking about, right? You are not, that is either A, that is not an argument for your side of the debate. It's actually an argument for our side of the debate. Or B, that just has nothing really to do with the topic. You're distracting from the discussion. That's not an important thing. Now we'll learn more specific language for this when we move on to the other models, but so far we have, you are wrong, that is incorrect. Even if you are correct, like factually, that's not relevant. That's not an argument in favor of your side of the debate. Then what is significance?
To show impact. To show impact.
You're right, but like, give me a little more explanation. You're definitely actually 100% right, but like, without using debatey words, what do you think he means when he says like, this isn't significant?
Maybe show the results of something.
Are what? What about the results? Let's pretend it is the impact. Let's use that word because we learned that last week. We learned the word impact. When Sasan says significance, like a challenge on significance, what he's saying is, even if it's true, even if it's about the topic, it's not a big deal. There is something else that matters more. Our argument matters more. Our impact outweighs your argument. It's more important than your argument, right? So Sasan contends that, strictly speaking, without knowing anything about debate, all you would really need to answer any argument is to figure out what of these three things, or what combination of these three things, is it that you're challenging. So let's do like an example real quick, okay? I'm gonna give you a topic, the random kind of jokey debate topic. Music from before the year 1990 is better than music after 1990. What side of that topic are you on? Who thinks that music from before 1990 is better? Raise your hand. None of you, okay? So literally all of you are your new heads, okay? So, sounds great. Sounds like you all agree that new music is better. Make an argument for why. Why is new music better than old music? Someone give me an argument. What do you got?
All the new music is able to build on the innovation from old music.
Okay. So my response, I'm just gonna make this off the dome, right? My response is adding new things to music, or quote unquote innovating music, doesn't mean that those new things you add are good. Which one did I just do? What would you categorize that as? What was his claim? What was Tyler's claim?
His claim was that being able to build on innovation is relevant.
New music's more innovative, it's adding new things to it.
Yeah.
Am I disputing that that is true? So it can't be accuracy. Am I saying that's not relevant to the discussion, or that's not an argument in favor of your side? Maybe. But on significance, am I saying that doesn't matter, that that's not actually a point in your favor, like that it's like it's not necessarily a good thing? You could argue either of these. You could either say it's relevance because I'm saying that that's not an argument in your favor because it could be bad, or you could say significance, I'm saying it's not an argument in your favor because it just doesn't matter, or who cares if it's new, right? These aren't necessarily clean distinctions in all instances. That's all we're doing with this model, right? It's just basically, is it true? Is it relevant? Is it about the topic? Is it important? Does it matter? Do we have more important arguments on our side? We're not going to spend a bunch of time here. We don't actually, most of the time, use this in competitive debate. But until you learn the other stuff, this is definitely good enough. If you're ever stumped and you're like, I don't know what to say against their argument, go back to this one and just think, okay, I'm going to do one of these three. I'm going to say it's not accurate. I'm going to say it's not significant. I'm going to say it's not relevant. Let's move on to the one that we use by far the most, that is used by far the most in debate in general. And that was also an invention of Sasan, just much, much earlier, is what's called button. Sasan made button, okay? And button is an acronym that Sasan came up with in 2014 in a document he published called the Kasravi Counter-Argument Manifesto. Now, Sasan did not invent any of the terms in button. He's just the first person who ever was like, here's a cute acronym for memorizing this. It's also a really bad acronym. But let's go with it. What is the B in button? I know you're dying to know. What is the B in button? Any guesses? Okay, great. The B stands for no brink. Anyone from my debate class remember what a no brink is? Totally fine if you don't. Anyone on the team remember what a no brink is? What do you got, Mike?
Is it you don't properly justify like something happening, Or your
Close, we're close.
significant harms or something.
What'd you?
Whatever you're like claiming is imminent is not actually like coming.
Totally.
It's not gonna happen.
Awesome. Let me draw you a picture. This is the picture that debate coaches have been drawing for like 30 years to explain the no break, okay? This is a cliff. And this is me. Okay? Who's the smallest person in this room? Dude, that's tough. This room, not a big room for like you and me, and then like everyone else is like, how tall are you, Clary?
Like 160 centimeters. I don't know what
I
that
don't know what that is. You, how tall is 160 centimeters?
5 foot.
What?
5 foot.
5 foot? How tall are you?
5'1".
I'm gonna say you're the shortest. Okay, so great. Here's Clary. Okay, right? The glasses, whatever. I'm not good at drawing. We are this far from the edge of the cliff, and Clary is gonna push me. Do you think I'm going over the edge of the cliff? Why? There could be 2 reasons why I'm not gonna go. Well, technically 3 reasons why I'm not gonna go over the edge of the cliff. 2 of them that are relevant. What's the first reason?
I don't have enough strength.
Not a big enough push. Clary's not a big enough change in my inertia, so to speak, to get me over that cliff. Because I'm big, she's relatively small. What else?
You're not close enough.
I'm not close enough to the edge of the cliff, right? In both cases, there is no break to me going over the cliff. And metaphorically, that thing we learned last week, the impact or the implication, that's me going over the cliff. The push is the link or internal link that we learned about. Now, real quick, if I'm hanging out over here, I'm taking like a selfie of myself, right? Like, wow, yeah, having so much fun. And now, little, even tinier Clary pushes me. I probably am going over the cliff. What I'm trying to illustrate here is that the size of the change doesn't necessarily have to increase to produce the impact if we do a better job of arguing how close we are to the cliff. Okay, so what does this look like in debate? In debate, this looks like, if we're saying, let's talk about like a vote. A lot of bills literally come down to 1 or 2 senators or Congress people signing on to it or not, right? So if you're reading a position and you're like, okay, right now there's this Republican bill that is potentially going to go through, but in the status quo, in the world of today, it's not going to pass. And it's not going to pass because Republicans, for whatever reason, are feeling fine with the way politics are. They think they're going to win the election already. They don't want to risk a major change that might upset the American voters, okay? But now, hypothetically, in a world of debate where we have to do some plan, some big liberal policy passes. Like we imagine, I don't know, Medicare for all passed or something in the United States, or like, healthcare, et cetera, whatever. Now, the calculus has changed. Because now, if that is a positively received policy by the people of the United States, they might be thinking about voting Dems. So the Republicans feel they have to course correct by passing a policy that appeals to their base. They weren't previously going to successfully pass it, but now those 2 people who were on the edge of whether to vote for it or not, now they will, right? That's kind of how this no brink looks. Like when we're making the argument, we would argue, there's no brink, the senators aren't going to vote for it, whatever, there's too many people who aren't interested in it, there's too much goodwill for the Republicans. They would try and respond by saying, well, things have changed because of the plan or whatever. But no brink is the change of the plan is insufficient to result in your impact. The thing you're claiming will happen, we're either so far away from it that your change isn't big enough, or we're really close but your change is still really small. No break. Any guesses on what the U in button stands for? What's the U word we learned last week? It's the first part of an advantage or disadvantage. Uniqueness, great. So the U stands for non-unique. Non-unique. A non-unique is when you're responding to a position and you suggest that the impact the other team claims will happen because we change the world, because we do the plan, has already happened, so it's not relevant. So let's pretend they were reading an argument that said something like this. We can't do your plan because if we do, it's going to increase inflation and then people won't be able to afford food anymore. How would you answer that? What's going on in the world right now? How's inflation? Is it doing really awesome or is it not doing super great? Great. People already can't afford their food because inflation is already high. Therefore, that is non-unique. When we say non-unique, what we're actually saying is that is not unique to and only to a world of the plan. We are saying that whether we do the plan or whether we do nothing, that same thing will happen because it's already happened. Non-unique. Let's get to the first T. Okay, first T is of course link term. And the second one, just for spoilers, is impact term. What's a turn? Turns are arguably the most strategic, most likely to win you the debate argument you can make in a debate when you're responding to someone. A link turn is where the other team has said in their argument, if we do this, it will get us closer to or further away from this impact. So most of the time the app says this, if we do our change, we'll get closer to a good thing. If we do our change, we'll decrease poverty. We'll decrease climate change. A link term is where you say you have the direction backwards. If we do that, it will increase poverty. It will increase climate change. So let me give you an example. I think I used this example in my class. Someone tells you, here's their argument, right? I'm going to drop out of school because I want to save money on college. Okay, I'm trying to save money, so I'm going to drop out of school. I'm not going to go to college. Okay? What would a link turn look like against that? Someone give me an example. How would you turn that? How would you say, no, it's going to do the opposite of that? Guesses? Okay, well, when you go to college, do you on average make more money or make less money? You make more money. Right? People with college degrees make more money on average than people with high school degrees certainly make more money than the high school dropouts, right? So the argument you make is no, link term, that's gonna cost you money, dude. Short term, you'll save 20 grand or whatever on college. But long term, your career earnings might be $1 million less. Link term. You thought you were getting closer to saving money. You're actually getting further from saving money. You caused the bad thing, you didn't solve it. That's what a link term looks like. Why is that such a strong argument if you win it? Because the other things we've talked about so far are what we call defense. Defense stops the other team from scoring a point. They tried to score a point, they read a position that said, here's our point, it's the impact. That's 1 point for us. Defense says, no, you don't get that point. A link term not only says you don't get that point, it says that becomes a point for us. Because if it was a good thing that you decreased poverty, it is certainly a bad thing that now we have proven you increase it. We didn't just take your point away from you, we added it to our side. One of the things you'll learn in debate, because you'll lose debates and then you'll learn this from that, almost always when you're new, the single biggest reason you end up losing a debate is because the other team read a turn and you didn't answer. It's just free. It's basically like game over. If the other team reads a turn and you don't answer it, the debate is effectively over because they just get a mile. They get to assume that argument's true. Not only did you just lose your argument, it became their argument. That's not good for you. So what's an impact turn? An impact turn, which is much rarer and much harder to pull off, is where you say, yes, your impact happens, but actually it's bad. Or the opposite. That thing you said that is bad that you're going to prevent, that thing was good. So let me give you an example. Most people are going to say climate change is bad because it's actually bad in the real world, right? Climate change is probably bad. Why? Why is climate change bad? Makes it like less habitable for humans, blah, 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 right? Okay, sure, but you could say it's good because humans dying is better for all the other animals. And, you know, there's way more other animals than there are people. There's like 8 billion humans, there's like 100 billion other animals. If we're the problem, why not get rid of it? Let's go with capitalism. People could say capitalism is really good because it leads to a lot of prosperity, it leads to a lot of economic through product, it leads to a lot of job creation, all of these kinds of things. That's their impact. Okay, well, what's the term? Why is it bad? Tyler, any reasons capitalism is bad? Any thoughts on that?
Because it relies on a class of people who can't get by without using their entire life and making products for other people who are gonna gain more wealth.
Sure, right. Like kind of the premise of the system, like I mean, like I'm not saying it's not awesome, whatever. Kind of the entire premise of the system is that people roughly like us, presumably like roughly middle class, maybe upper or lower middle class people, whatever, get to live pretty cool lives where we have like different clothes and I don't know 7 different colors of watches or whatever the fuck on that given day. But then like 3 million people in some other country have to be slaves. Like essentially, right? So it's really cool for us, really, really bad for them. Capitalism is really good for wealth production. It's really, really bad for the environment. Impact term, okay? Now, here's the problem with impact terms. One, they're hard to pull off in general because they're kind of counterintuitive when you think about it because the judge is used to hearing this is a good thing. But now you have to argue this is a bad thing. Let's do it with the US military, right? Maybe someone is trying to say, well, the US military is a really good thing because it helps combat, you know, violence in the world and terrorism and, you know, prevent Russia from doing whatever Russia's doing, etc. Someone can say the exact opposite. No, the United States literally invades other countries, kills innocent people, supports regimes that are committing genocide, so on and so forth, right? Like there are arguments on both sides. Here's the hard part about an impact term. Let's pretend their impact was we decrease racism. Are you going to stand up and go, well, actually, got some news for you. Racism's great. No, that'd be really stupid. I'd be embarrassed that you're my student. Don't do that thing. So you have to know which impacts you can and can't turn. You have to know the arguments to make that happen. Those are terms. They are offense. They score you a point. All right, now we get to arguably the most important and easiest one to do. And I always stress to my students, this is always on the table. If someone's really good, it is possible that none of these other ones apply. It is possible that they have a rank, that they have uniqueness, that it's really hard to argue the link, that their impact is true, all that good stuff. But you could always say O, which is the only one that makes any sense in this acronym, outweighs. And outweighs ties into that concept Sasan talked about of significance. Outweighs is where you literally just say, Judge, I don't care if this is true. It doesn't matter. If all of our arguments are true and right, our stuff just matters more. Like, they save 7 cats from a tree, we save 5 dogs, but those 5 dogs matter more than those 7 cats. Saving the environment matters more than generating economic prosperity. It outweighs. Now I'm going to make a note here real quick. This tends to be done in what we call impact calculus or weighing. So I'm going to briefly deviate from this before we get to the last N, even though there's already been like 3 of those, and tell you the basics of impact calculus. There's a few ways we compare impacts. I have to remember how to spell reversibility. Well, let's pretend that's right. Again, can't spell. Reversibility and sequencing. How come I can spell sequencing but not reversibility? Perfect. Those are the 5 we care about when it comes to impact calculus. I'm going to go briefly over them. Magnitude. What's magnitude?
How big?
How big mine is. Mine is bigger than yours. It matters more because either quantitatively or qualitatively, it is bigger. 7 cats is more than 5 cats. Being tortured is worse than being grounded. Right? Magnitude. Probability. What do you think that means? 100%. My impact's more likely. You said nuclear war. You said you're going to have a nuclear war if we don't do your thing. That is incredibly unlikely. You know what is likely? The systemic violence that we're talking about. Dealing with racism, dealing with dehumanization, dealing with starvation, etc. It's not as big of a deal necessarily, but it's actually going to happen. And you can think about this, right? Like, if all we cared about was magnitude, none of us would like ever go on a plane or get in a car, because like the outcomes from those things that are negative are like really, really bad. But yet every day, almost all of us probably get in the car because we decide on a probability basis that the odds of us dying are so low, especially if we're on a plane, right? Time frame. Time frame is either how soon or how long lasting the impact will be. We have to prioritize my impact because it's happening tomorrow. The asteroid's going to hit the Earth tomorrow unless we do my plan. Climate change won't happen for a few more years. It's also the one kind of weakness. Climate change is a very good impact debate, and the one kind of weakness to it is like every year there's a new report that says climate change is only 10 years away, but we've been doing that for like 20 years. So it's like, all right, I guess it's gonna finally get us, right? But otherwise, why is climate change a really good impact? How's the magnitude on climate change? Pretty good. How about the probability? Very good, right? Okay, so how about time frame topics? Okay. How about reversibility? What does reversibility mean? What do you think that implies? Why should, if I said I prefer my impact on reversibility, what does that mean? Tristan?
Your impact probably isn't reversible.
Genie is not going back in the bottle. Okay? This sounds kind of awful, but it's like, if you've been like, the word we use in debate a lot is like dehumanized, right? Like you've suffered in some way, you were treated like you weren't a person. We can kind of still rehumanize you as long as you live. Like, you could be liberated, you could live a full, there's tons of people historically who lived awful, awful lives for decades and then lived completely normal lives after that, or even incredibly successful lives. Because that's reversible. You know what's not super reversible? Genocide. Or nuclear war, right? We can't put that genie back in the bottle. Once it happens, it's over. And then the last one here is sequencing. This is the most complicated one. It is arguably the best one. It's the one that is done the least often. But sequencing is where you argue, I need a 2-for-1 deal. If my impact happens, so will yours, which lets me steal it. Because debate is kind of algebra, right? When you're a little kid, I don't know if they did this in your school. Again, I was in school like 20 years ago. 5th grade was literally 20 years ago for me. When they taught us algebra in 5th grade, they had this little scale, right? And they would put like units, which look like pawns from chess, like on one side, right? And they'd be like, okay, you gotta balance the equation. All right, well, I guess we need 2 of them over here. Okay, but this one's worth 3, whatever, right? Debate looks like this. They have their impacts on one side, you have your impacts on the other side. But if you read an argument that says, if my impact happens, yours will too, you have now added all of their impacts to your side. They still get theirs, but if you do too, that's not a point for them. They cancel out like algebra. So what would this look like? They say their impact is famine, meaning people starving. You say your impact is nuclear war. Can anyone explain to me how one of those things would cause the other?
If you have a nuclear war, you go into a nuclear winter, there's no sun to grow your plants, and you're
Yeah, debate blocks. Yeah, if there is a significant nuclear war, a lot of dust is going to get into the air. That can block out photosynthesis. That can reduce the temperature of the earth. That can cause a bunch of crops to die. Even if it doesn't, the crops become irradiated. If you eat irradiated crops, you die, therefore famine. Which means, if I am winning my argument that a nuclear war will happen, I am also winning your argument that a famine will happen. Now the question is, can someone here do the opposite? Can someone here argue why famine will cause nuclear war?
As for countries in famine, they're going to look for an easier way to discover.
They need resources. They happen to have, I mean, North Korea, very scary, a lot of famine, a lot of nuclear weapons, right? You know, it goes both ways. So, that is sequencing. Sequencing is, if mine happens, yours will happen, so we must prioritize mine, because the algebra says I win. Great. We're done with that. We're done with that way. Which brings us to the last one, which is no link. And no link is just what it says. You don't have a link. There is not a connection between the change you're talking about and the impact you think you get. The silly example I give in my class is someone's like, if you step on a crack, you're going to break your mother's back. It's like no link, there's no connection between stepping on cracks and spine damage. But in debate, what does it actually look like? There's a lot of things it looks like. People will say, if we increase the minimum wage, then that will only increase inflation or something, or that will mean that the prices of goods go up the exact same amount, so nothing actually changes. But the data would overwhelmingly tell us that when wages go up, there's not a one-to-one increase on every product, because that makes no sense. There are people who legitimately if we raise people's salaries, then landlords will just raise their rent by the same amount. And it's a bunch of landlords have different tenants. How could that possibly work? Where just every tenant, they're well, how much more do you make this month? $400 coming to me. Doesn't make sense. There's no connection, which goes back to relevance. That's button. No break, non-unique, link turn, impact turn, outweighs, no link. Link turn, impact turn, and outweighs are all offense. They're all reasons why your side is better than the other side, why you've scored a point that matters more than them, etc. The other ones are all defense. You're just taking away their stuff. If you only got to pick one, if you only got to pick having offense or having defense, you want offense. Offense, offense, offense. Okay? Offense wins debates, almost always. Defense is way, way, way easier. It is way, way, way easier to prepare defense. You can kind of prepare defense before you're even in the round, whereas offense, you have to figure it out in the moment. So you want a balance of these things. So now that we've covered that, I know we've kind of worked on a lot on refutation, it's a lot. We're going to go to the kind of complex Paul one that Sasan didn't come up with, that I came up with. Okay? I have a video on this somewhere already on the YouTube channel, but I call this, and again, only I call this, algebraic. And again, pretend I know how to spell algebra. Algebraic refutation. Okay. I've done this demo before in a few debate classes. I might have done it in Tyler's. I think I definitely did it in Ruth and Hannah's class. But my premise is that when it comes to policy debate specifically, which is the one we'll do by far the most, all debate arguments can be summarized through the following algebraic sentence/expression. All of debate comes down to this sentence. X will cause Y, where X is the plan, X is the link, and Y is the impact. And what I really like about this is without knowing any of that, anything we just talked about, if you just think about it, you can come up with all of those arguments using this expression. So their statement, their argument, is doing X will cause Y. What is a possible response to that using similar terms?
X will not cause
Doing X will not cause Y. So first one, doing X does not cause Y. Which one is that? Which thing that we just learned over here is that? No link. Right? They said doing X will cause Y, you said doing X will not cause Y. All you're saying is no link. There was not a connection between the change and the impact. Give me another one. Something else you could say. Try and think using those ones how you would express that in these terms. What's an impact term? An impact term says, actually that thing you said is good is actually bad. How would you write that algebraically? Oh, impact term would be Y is actually good/bad. You said it's good, we say it's bad. You said it's bad, we say it's good. How about the link term? What?
X will
No.
cause.
That is another one though, but no. What's the link? Which variable? Say it loud. This is not a tricky one. It's X, right? It's written on the board. X equals link, right? Okay. So a link to a proper argument would be X causes Y. A link term says X doesn't cause Y, it prevents Y. X doesn't solve Y, it causes Y. So all it would be is X causes less / more Y. Now, it depends on what they said. If their impact was decreasing something, you would say it's more. If they said their impact was increasing something, you would say it's less. We get further from it, not closer to it. Okay? I'm gonna start just going through a few more of these, right? So, if we were making an outweighs argument, that is Z greater than Y. There's some other impact that we haven't talked about yet. Z is other impact, someone else's impact. Matters more. What is no break? What's non-unique? Why is already happening? Again, this feels kind of complicated, but I'm really trying to stress to you is what I call a content agnostic approach to refutation. What I mean by that is it doesn't matter what the debate is about, all of these are still true. If you can think of what the X and the Y is in the particular debate, or potentially the Z, as that's necessary, you can make these arguments. The problem with this, which is very good, and if you could literally win a national championship if all you know is this. So all we used for years. The problem with this, and it's one of the big barriers between being a novice, being a varsity student, and being a really, really successful good debater, is people learn words, they learn labels, they don't learn function. So they can say link term, but they can't actually express functionally, strategically, in terms of when the game is actually analyzed. What does a link term do? It is way, way more important to understand what your argument does, what your response does, than to just know the name of it. And like, I'm not exaggerating, 1% of people maybe really get it. But I don't think it's that complicated when you really think about it. It's like, I mean, you all theoretically know basic, that's like basic babies. It's not even really algebra, I just like using variables or whatever. So, for any argument, this one works really effectively because you can just plug in what they said and try and do one of these things. This will work 99% of the time. This is what you'll mostly use. This is what your judge will expect to hear. You will not, in the middle of the debate, go, hey judge, X does not yield Y because greater, and you're going to say it's a link term or whatever. I just want you to understand the function of the argument because then you'll be able to use them more often. A lot of people think it's incredibly hard to read offense, to read link terms and impact terms, because they don't really know what they're doing. They know it exists, but like that's it. That helps you with that. Any questions about this refutation stuff? Okay. How hard does this feel? Hard? Like reasonably hard? Does it feel fine? Okay. Next week, we're not done just yet for today, but next week, we're going to start debating. If next week we're starting debating, my expectation is not that any of you will actually say any of these terms. Maybe you'll say some of these, maybe one or two of you will try these. But by the time we get to the tournament, if you just know this, you are going to smoke all these new kids, right? Like this is like important stuff, and the sooner you understand it, the better. Because the problem is, a lot of people don't learn this for a long time, and then it feels scary, because they're like, well, that's what all the varsity kids are doing, no. But no, it's like, it's just how theory works. This is all just logically connected and logically derived statements, and if you use them, you'll be successful. Great. Hit the video, Dean, turn it off quickly, go.